Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaistushtyuvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuh Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti na Starkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspati'r Dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let's chant the first two verses of the Mandukya Upanishad. Number 1. Om iti etadakshara idagum sarvam tasya upavyakyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyaditi sarvam omkara eva yatcha anyatrikalatitam tadapi omkara eva. Number 2. Sarvagum hi etad brahma ayam atma Brahma so ayamatma chatushpat. So, in the first mantra, the Mandukya the Upanishad say, Om iti etadaksharam idagum sarvam. The Om aksharam, the word Om means everything. So this is the opening statement. So this is pratigya matram. It is a promise. It is something to be seen, but it has to be stated because that is the fact. Om is the word that means not any one thing but everything. This is the statement. So here, everything means Parameshwara, Ishvara, because Ishvara is not different from the world. The world is also the body of Ishvara. So it is both the Upadana Karanam as well as the Nimitta Karanam. So when you're saying this is the word for everything, it is a word for Ishvara. Later on, we will see, as one of the students had written to me, saying, you mentioned that this is my name. I couldn't quite get that. And I understand that. It will take a while that it is my name. That will only come when we study in detail the non-difference between myself and Paramatma. Jivatma and Paramatma need to be one and the same. They are one and the same. So when we understand that, then we can see that the name of Ishvara, Paramatma, as Om, also applies to me. So here, this is interesting that now that we are discussing this fact that one of the students was saying that I could tell that Om was the name of Ishvara, but I didn't know that it is my name. So I think the way this course will be conducted at this stage for in our study, we're going to state some advanced things from time to time. You see, it's interesting. If you were to conduct a course for relative beginners, then you have to be very careful because you can only give them something that they can immediately digest and then slowly bring them up to understand the more advanced concepts and so on. But in this course, even though we will have a structure, it's not as though we're not going to have a structure of understanding. Obviously, we're starting with mantra number 1, not anywhere else. But still, from time to time, based on Swami Akhandananda's explanations, we will bring in some advanced concepts right away. And you may want to just file it away and not try to grapple with it until it comes later. So this kind of a thing will happen. I'm kind of just thinking that, when you have, I have a brand new grandson who's not 1 year old, he's 9 months old, and I know how the solid foods are slowly introduced because this kid is not capable of digesting, advanced food. But suppose you have a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, then if you give them French fries, they can digest it. So in that sense, I expect that all of you are no longer toddlers. You have a basic understanding of what the teaching is, and I will be happy to dispense some advanced concepts from time to time. Anyway, I just wanted to make that comment about the name for myself. That will come later. In fact, it's very interesting. This is why I decided to chant verse number 2. The Upanishad itself doesn't waste any time in stating that the Atma and Brahman, which is Paramatma, and Atma, which is Jivatma in this context, are one and the same. So you see, Sarvagum hi etad Brahma, ayam Atma Brahma. So first of all, it says Sarvam hi etad Brahma means Tasya upavyakhyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyatiti sarvam omkara eva. So look at this. This is interesting. First verse says that everything is the word Om. Right? That's the verse number 1. Then it says, by the way, everything that we talked about, etad, just now we talked about it, Om iti etad aksharamidam sarvam tasya upavyakhyanam. This one is Brahman, Sarvam hi etad Brahman. Then it says also, I am Atma Brahman. You are the Brahman. So, why am I saying that from time to time we will have introduced, advanced concept? Right away, the Upanishad itself doesn't waste any time and says, by the way, it's all the same. But it is still pratigya matram because it all has to be explained, and that's what the whole study is all about. Okay, so I just want to point that out. Okay, now let us look at the nature of a name for a vastu. So there are two things. One is a name, the other one is a vastu. Vastu is also called dravya. Dravya means there is some object. There is something, like a table. So table is an object and it has a name called table in English. Okay? Okay, now, so it turns out that in the entire conduct of my life, I cannot go through life without having objects. Can't do it. Everything, if you just think about it, everything is really nothing but objects, objects, objects. Okay, now, another thing, this came up in the discussion in one of the Karikas later, but I'll bring it in here. Again, the same thing. I'm going to bring in some things from later on in as part of the context for the concepts. Swami Kananda says that really speaking, there are two types of dravyas, two types of dravya. In fact, dravya is a better word than vastu because the word vastu means the real thing. Dravya can be something perceived which may not be real, but vastu really means something which is only reserved for something which is totally real. But here, for convenience, we can interchange the two words, dravya and vastu. Anyway, so Swami Mukhandananda says that you cannot go through life without interacting with two kinds of dravyas. So one is sthula dravya, gross objects like table, chairs, people, plants, animals. Here's something you can see, you can feel, you can touch. This is sthula dravya. Then you also have sukshma dravya. You have subtle dravyas, objects. What are the examples of those? Disappointment. So you cannot say, oh, disappointment is not a dravya. I can't touch it. You may say you do not touch it, but it affects you more than the table. Elation, relief, shock. All these are mental vrittis that have a form. See, that's the thing. All the dravyas must have a form. They must be perceivable. This is what is called rupa. So rupa, of course, is only through the eyes, but in all the sense organs, they have a corresponding vishaya, corresponding object, like smell, color, all those kinds of things. Color, of course, is also a rupa. So anyway, the point is that we go through life with a variety of things that are either sthula dravya or sukshma dravya. Now, one interesting thing which is not relevant here but will come later on, karana. So, we have three types of shariras. We have the sthula sharira, which is the hardware. Then you have the sukshma sharira, which is the software, mental things. And then we have the karana sharira. What about the karana sharira? Is it also not a dravya? There's a big discussion about this later on in the Karika. And the conclusion of this discussion is no. Karana sharira is not a dravya. Why? Why is it not a dravya? This is the interesting thing. Ignorance is a very funny creation by Ishvara. It is neither there, it is neither not there. Where is it? What form it is? This is unknown. Only when it goes, then you say this was an ignorance. That's it. It's something unique property it has. Karana Sharira. So anyway, in this discussion, Karana Sharira is not a dravya, but we go through life. So now, going back to the basic object, basic discussion, we go through life with interacting with these dravyas. And how do you interact with the dravyas? They must have a name. You must have a name, otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. Again, we're going back to teaching a young kid. So, like for example, there is some kind of a book, and in that book you will have a picture of a table, and then you will have a picture of a chair, and you have a picture of a ball, airplane. And so the parents have to now make an effort to have the kids sit down and say, this is table. So the kid sort of says, what? Table? Yes, this is called a table. Say it. Table. And this has to be repeated. Just like learning a new language. In the beginning, just the alphabet and so on for a newcomer, it's such a problem. E, U, Ka, P. He can't get it. But if you keep repeating it, it slowly comes into your mind. So similarly here, table, chair, etc., etc. Finally, there's some testing also done. The mother or father will say, what is this? If the kid says, I don't know, then means that it hasn't been connected. So here, Adi Shankara also says later on, this is what is called Upaya Bhutam. I think in one of the bhashyas, I think either for number 1 or number 2, it says it is Upaya Bhutam. Upaya Bhutam. Upaya means method. What is the method of transacting your life successfully? The method is that somebody has to connect the name with the form. This is it. If you look at it, we cannot really even, you cannot, unless you have some congenital issues, like Helen Keller, she was an exception, absolutely no, I don't know all the defects that she had, no sight, etc. But normally, unless it's an exception, people have to utilize the 5 senses by having a connection made between nama and rupa. And here the whole Upanishad and the entire understanding of the self is all associated with this upaya rupa. You see? See now? Exactly just like a parent is now connecting the rupa and nama, the Upanishad is connecting the name Om with the Vastu, which is Atma. Paramatma or Jivatma, that will come later, but the Atma. And it has to do it by distinguishing it with the others. You see, this is the important thing. So in the case of a book that has a picture of a table and chair and ball and so on, the mother or the father has to put the finger on the picture of the table and say, this is a table. You cannot just say, this is a table. You look someplace else. No, it has to be focused on it. So the child says, chair is not a table. This is a table. And after a couple of tries, the child says, okay, it's a table. Then after that, you are in business. Why? Because you can see a table and then you can relate it and say, you see that picture of the table there? This is the table. I was just with my grandkids the other day, and it just happened. I just remember it. I was sitting there, and my granddaughter was sitting next to me, and she was having her dinner, and we were having her focus on the dinner and just don't play or anything, just eat. And she was sitting next to me, and she put her feet on the table. And my son Manoj said, Sanya, you cannot do that. You cannot put feet on the table. So it's interesting. When he said that, don't put feet on the table, he didn't say, don't put your feet here. He simply said he was also doing something else, and on the distance he said, please don't put the feet on the table. And she removed it. So in her mind, she knew what the word table meant. And it meant this one. Otherwise, he would have to say, take her feet, move it, and say, not here. He didn't have to do that. All he said was, don't put your feet on the table. Very good. So now what it means is that, so going back to the fact that the exact picture has to be associated with the word table. So here what the Upanishad is doing is putting the word Om by describing it exactly what it is. Because until then, we don't know what Om means. So imagine a word in Mandarin for table, which I don't know. But supposing you say a word in Mandarin for table, and you don't know, like you and I don't know Mandarin. I know Lychee knows it. We wouldn't know what the word means. Even if you use English, don't put your feet on the word for Mandarin table. You wouldn't know. Similarly here also, we don't know what Om means. It hasn't been connected to the Vastu. There we can use the word Vastu. We can't even say Dravya, we can say Vastu. So here's some very interesting, in distinguishing Om to the Vastu, some very interesting thing to point out here, which again is a kind of an advanced concept that could be done later, but I'll bring it in here just to make this point. So, when you say the word table and you test the child and say, do you know what a word table means? Supposing this is interesting. Supposing there is a child who is, I don't know, 1.5 or 2. They're not very clear about what a table is. But supposing you have a friend and you go and visit them and you talk to this young kid and say, You know what a table is? Then you can tell whether the person understands what a table is. They'll say, yeah, this is a table. Okay, then you say, oh, good, good, good. You've grown up. Okay? So the knowledge of a word leads you to a dravya. Like we asked this child, don't put your feet on the table. She understood what it means, that it is not, I'm not supposed to put the feet on this object. So there is a knowledge of the word and its corresponding dravya. So those two things are there. Now look at this. That knowledge needs to have something done with it. Knowledge of all dravyas means some utility. This is the point I'm making. Okay, so listen to this now. All knowledge of dravyas, whether it is sthula dravya or sukshma dravya, doesn't matter, leads to, it is just a step in something. Like for example, table. Supposing you say, do you know the word table? Say, yes, I know what the word table. And then you keep quiet. Then you say, why did you ask me? So this is a meaningless conversation. You know the word table. It's okay for a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, but to an adult, supposing you say, you know what table? You say, yeah. Okay. Then change the conversation to something else. You'll say, am I something wrong with me? You asked me a question and you stopped there. So that means that the reference to the word table means there is something more coming. I can see, in fact, it's interesting, all this, the visit to our son the last couple of days. So they actually bought a table online and was still enclosed. So my son and daughter-in-law both said, oh no, we bought a new table. And let's show it to you. Because my wife is an interior designer and she kind of has an idea of how these things should all work together. And so my daughter-in-law was very anxious to get her approval. So they opened it and my wife said, oh, this looks good, it's perfect, it'll fit very nicely. So something has to be done with the word table. This is also true of all knowledges. So when you have a knowledge of food, that means food has to be eaten. You have a knowledge which is a first step in some more things that are coming. When you have a knowledge about a language, that language has to be learned and utilized properly. So there is some utility and so on. So that means that the results, which is called phalam, fruit in Sanskrit, comes after jnanam. Okay? You have jnanam, and then you have some action, and that action results in phalam. This is true of all transactions in my life, except one. And that is the knowledge of myself. So why is that different? How is that unique? The knowledge of the self is complete in itself. There is no other step required after that. This is what is called, in technical terms, phalavyapti. So if you want to write it down somewhere, phalavyapti, then we will see what phalavyapti is. But the knowledge of the self is something truly unique. There is no other knowledge of anything else like that. It's the only thing that has this quality of including the phalam inside of it. And what is the phalam? The phalam is total ananda, unconditional swarupa, satchit ananda, a feeling of complete freedom, unlike anything else that one has ever felt. So the ananda, which is phalam, is in fact the jnana. So this is interesting. You can say, I think I have self-knowledge. You have self-knowledge? And yeah, I've been studying, how many Upanishads I've been studying, this, that, or the other. And where's the phalam? I don't see the phalam. So how do we reconcile this? The way we reconcile is, you think you have jnanam, but you don't. This is the proof of Atma Vidya. Ananda is the phalam. Ananda, in fact, is the confirmation that you have self-knowledge. And if you don't have ananda, at least be realistic. Don't be disappointed. That's not the point. But don't go around. This is exactly the issue that many of the acharyas all say that. And in fact, I remember even in my own life, I had such false indications that I'm okay now. And you also become a little bit proud. Oh, I remember this so well. When I came back from study with Swamiji after 2.5 years, it was a feeling, I know some things that people don't know about it. And I had this kind of like a sly smile that went on for years. I remember this. Finally, I realized this is not ananda, because true ananda is not there yet. And so I had to be reschooled in my own mind. Nobody had to tell me that. This is all my own. That really I don't know yet. I think I do, and I have some sense of satisfaction. I don't deny that. Everybody that studies definitely has some kind of a feeling that I'm much better than before, which is good. But true ananda only comes when the jnanam is very clear. Anyway, so this is, so why am I saying this? That I should really connect it. I haven't connected it yet. So, what I'm saying is that Nama-rupa connection, name and form connection, which is done through the upaya. Upaya means practice, learning, like learning a new language. It requires a lot of steps. To become fluent in some language is not easy. My memory comes back to my younger son Manoj when he was in high school. He must have been about maybe 15, 16, somewhere there. I had a chance to go to Paris for some conference as part of Hewlett Packard, and so I decided the whole family can come with me. My older son was not here, so my wife and my younger son and myself, we all went to, and we thought, and oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, Manoj was learning French in high school. So he would come back and boast about it, make sentences, give some sentences and so on. Then we thought it would be great if he also practices French in Paris. So it was so interesting. We go to Paris, and so we were moving around, and so Manoj started to say something in French, very carefully and constructed and so on. So the other person said, oh, good, he knows French. So he starts to really talk very fast in French, and Manoj didn't understand any of that. It was so complicated and fast. And he got flustered after a while. So finally he decided, you know what? I am not going to talk in French. My French is too superficial, too shallow. It's very elementary. It's not enough for me to really transact. Learning a language is not easy. That's why learning the language can be best done when you're very young. Because when you're very young, your brain is so much more amazing development of the mind. Honestly, these kids can pick up things. At this age, to learn a new language, like I have a regret now, I wish I had learned Spanish. We have so many helps, and I wish I had done that early on. Now it's just too late. I don't have the time. I can do it, but I don't have the time. Anyway, so this upaya of name Om and the Vastu name is not easy. Not easy. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But it has to be done. The thing that I want to do to close off this is that the word Om and its corresponding Vastu, which is Paramatma, is different from the name of other dravyas. Now you can give me the answer to my question. How is it any different? I've already told you. You please tell me. Phalavyapti. Phalavyapti. After the upaya, after the method of connecting the Om with Brahma or Atma, as the second verse says, I am Atma Brahma. Etad, what it says, what did it say? Sarvam hi etad Brahma. So you see, verse number 1 talks about Rupa. Both of them talk about Rupa and Nama. And it is the same as the Atma. So, the name so you see, this is the thing. Let's summarize. For other dravyas, yes, the name has to be unambiguously attached to a rupa. Unambiguous. Table, and the word has to be unambiguous. And it has to be exclusive of everything else. When you say table, nothing else is a table except a table. That has to be done. Anyway, so now you have a name and rupa for everything. But when you have everything, something has to be done with it, as I mentioned before. But when it comes to Atma, nothing more needs to be done. The unambiguous connection between name and the Vastu results in complete knowledge. And the complete knowledge is, this is everything. How is it everything has to be explained? But I'm just telling you the sequence of the name and form. So here, one other thing that I had mentioned last time, I'd mentioned last time that Swami Akhandananda had given a kind of a rhetorical example about the name and form, Namarupa. And remember, I had started this story about this is an imaginary conversation. Imaginary but fruitful in understanding the example. Conversation between a human being, Jiva, and Ishvara as Paramatma. So Jivatma and Paramatma. So Jiva and Parameshvara. So the Jiva was frustrated that I cannot see the identity between the two of us. So he asked Ishvara to please appear before me and answer my question. So after his prayers, Ishvara appeared before him and he said, yes, what do you want? So the Jiva said, I have a complaint against you, to be quite honest. Ishvara said, really? Complaint against me? Okay, what is it? He says, in Vedas it says the two of us are great friends. And we are like siblings. Ishvara says, yes. In fact, I was the one that wrote it. He says, if that is the case, there has been injustice done to me. Can you imagine brothers and sisters and friends being totally different from each other? They're pretty much in the same household. One may be a little bigger, one may be a little smaller, one may be a little bit richer than the other one, but they should be in the ballpark, shouldn't they? Ishvara says, yes, that's true. And he says, we are not. You and I are supposed to be in the same family. Are we not? Ishvara says, oh, absolutely. Yep. We are both Chaitanya Swarupa. We are not objects of the world. You're also looking at objects of the world. I'm also looking at the objects of the world. So we're both Chaitanya Swarupa. Yes, we're all the same family. He says, aha. Then how come you have the whole world at your disposal? You are the Lord. You are the very word Ishvara means you are the big boss. And I am miserable. I don't have anything. I'm so limited and so on. Does that make sense? Is this right? Isn't this injustice? So Ishvara said, okay, I get it. So let's do this. I have a solution. We're going to divide everything into two parts. One is Nama and the other one is Rupa. And you know that Nama and Rupa are the same thing. They are exactly the same thing. One is not superior to the other. So let me actually interrupt the story. Okay, interrupt the story. I'll complete it in a minute. By reciting, for those of you that know Sanskritam, so let us briefly recite 9:16. Okay. Briefly recite the Shankara Bhashya of verse number 1 and introduction to verse number 2. So there are two paragraphs. You can find it in any of the books, best done in Swami Dayanandji's book, or you can take some other book that has both of them. So you can look at that. So anyway, it says, this is Shankara Bhashya. Om iti etad akshara idagum sarvam iti. So he says, this is what I'm referring to. When you say iti means, this is the reference. Okay. Yad idam arthajatam abhidheya bhutam. Arthajatam means that the entire dravyas that are abhidheyas, abhidheya bhutam. They are in the form of forms. They are dravyas. Tasya abhidhana avyatirekat abhidhanasya cha omkara avyatirekat omkara eva idam sarvam. So he says, Tasya abhidhana avyatirekat. So his avyatirekat means non-difference. So Shankara says, listen, the dravyas and their names are really the same. They're not any different. He says that right here. Param cha brahma abhidhana abhidheyayoho upaya purvakam avagamyate iti eva omkara eva. So this is the point I made earlier, that there has to be a method to introduce you to the fact, just like a parent does between a table and the name and the table or dravya. This has to be done. Somebody has to point that out, because we have never thought about it this way. We've thought about the name of objects, but what is the name that has everything in it and is yet independent? That is the name has to be done. And then he goes about that, talks about it. Then in the introduction to the second verse, he makes a very interesting point, which is the same thing about the story that I'm going to complete in a minute. So in the second paragraph, he says, Abhidhana abhidheyayoho ekatve api abhidhana pradhanyena nirdeshah kritaha om iti etat aksharamidam sarvam ityadi. So he says, even though the two are the same, abhidhana abhidheyayoho ekatve api, even though the two are the same as we have mentioned it, and they are, still you are using the abhidhana, the name here, and not really talking about the dravyas. So that means you are giving priority to the name, but not to the corresponding dravya. And then I'm quickly going to read the rest and not going through the details. I can do that, but if you can read it on your own or do the translation, but I'll make the whole point in a minute. So the next line is Abhidhana pradhanyena nirdishyasya punar abhidheya pradhanyena nirdeshaha abhidhana abhidheyayoho ekatve pratipatyarthaha itaratha hi abhidhana tantra abhidheya pratipatti iti abhidheyasya abhidhanatvam gaunamiti ashankya syat ekatva pratipattescha prayojanam abhidhana abhidheyayoho ekena eva prayatnena yugapat pravilapayan. I'm not sure that I'm doing that, I'm just doing it quickly. Tad vilakshanam brahma pratipatya iti tatha cha vakshyati pada matra cha pada. That will come a little bit later on. The main point he's saying is this. He says, my dear, I have already pointed out that the two of them are exactly the same, haven't I? Then don't make a mistake, one is superior to the other. They are all the same. That's the point that he's making. If they were different, I could tell. And in fact, if you were to pin me down, I'm going back to the story of Ishvara talking to the Jiva now, after having cited that the same point is being made by Adi Shankara. In fact, Ishvara says, if you really pin me down, the name is superior to the Rupa. Because when you say, okay, I'm going to make a division, I understand your complaint against me, so I tell you what, I will take all the dravyas, rupas, and you take all the namas. And the jiva can say, oh my God, this is another trick. This is another trick. You take all the real things and you've just given me the names for them. How am I any better than that? So then Swami Akhandananda actually explains some of the reasons through that. So I still have to give you your third name that I promised. So I'm going to keep some time for that. So I may actually go through rather quickly, but let me give you at least the sense of what Ishvara says is, why is this an even deal? In fact, you get the better of it. Okay. So Ishvara says, look, and you know, this is very, very relevant these days. And this is probably a good story. I probably will not spend that much time here because I want to go back to what I promised last time, which is, so maybe I'll just do the example and I'll probably give the more detailed one in the next class. Look at Rama, the Prana Pratishtha ceremony that is being done in Ayodhya. And this is very relevant to what Ishvara is telling the Jiva. He says, I'm telling you, I'm giving you something superior to me. Don't think I am giving you less. You look at Rama. The real Rama may have lived his life in Avatara and is gone. But does that matter to us? Are we crying that Rama is gone? It is senseless. We cannot do anything about it, and there's no need to do anything about finding the real Rama from the old days. There's a FaceTime from my wife just reached India and she's doing a FaceTime with the kids. I think I'll let them do it. There's no point in crying for the Rupa of Rama, because the name Rama is just as useful, if not more. Why? Because what he stood for, as I mentioned in my WhatsApp method, that really, he had a very difficult life, like all the avatars. But he went through life with upholding what he had to do, his dharma, because he could rely on the fact that it doesn't make any difference to me. If you want me to go to the forest, I'll go to the forest. So what? My body is going to the forest. I am what I am. So the maryada, the dharma, the conduct, the pleasantness, the equanimity, all those kinds of qualities are the ones that we remember. And we try to emulate that. How do we do that? Is it because you are going there and, yes, symbolically you want to go to Ayodhya and this is what is so beautiful in the Hindu pantheon, that God's name can be done through not only the Ishvara, but Rama in the form of Ishvara really, but any individual devatas, you can do it either through a pratima or through a pratika. And both are upaya purvakam. Upaya purvakam means just like the mother has to do an upaya of first creating the picture of a table. Similarly here also the pratima and pratika, both are upaya purvakam, where you connect the name and the vastu. That has to be done. This is what we're going to be doing in the Upanishads and the Karika. So the nama of Rama is more practical, more effective, more powerful than the Rupa. So there's 3 or 4 arguments that Ishvara gives to the jiva, and I'll just give you a little sample of it because I want to switch subjects to the third name for yourself that I have promised before the class finishes. So we will complete some of the other arguments that Ishvara gave to the jiva in this story later. Okay. All right. So now we had said that there were 2 names that indicate yourself. One is Upanishad and the other one is Om. And we were all wondering about what the third name is. So before I give you the name, Again, the name given by the Shastra to you should be representative, complete, and accurate. It should fully describe you. Because the names given by any other means does not fulfill those conditions. As we saw, names given by parents are arbitrary. Sometimes there are disputes. All kinds of problems are there in the names. But a name which is given to you in terms of your entirety is the name which is most appropriate for you. And from that sense, as we saw, that the Upanishad also is a accurate mirror to you. Because the Laukika mirrors, the transactional mirrors that we have, are only partial. They only show some parts of me, not the others. But if there is a mirror that shows the completeness of me, which is Upanishad, Vyavadhana Rahitam, which is the Satchidananda, that is a complete name. And Om is a complete name that we are going to study. What about the third one? So in Sanskritam, names have to be fully representative of what they mean. So for example, in English, suppose there is a knock on the door. You know, you're sitting there reading something, or there's a doorbell ringing. That often happens sometimes when someone has lost the key and they are asking to come in. So there is a knock on the door, and you will say, "Who is it?" And your spouse will say, "Me." Now, you better recognize the voice of your spouse and not say, "Me who?" Somebody else can also say it, but when they come in, they will say, "Me such and such." But when your spouse or your child, your family member comes in, all they have to say is "me." Me means that's the name for myself. In Sanskritam, the name for me is Aham. Aham. So that is the name for you. Aham. Why is that an appropriate name? This we should see. Because all words in Vedanta and in Sanskritam are very meaningful. They're full of meaning. They're not arbitrary. There are a class of names which is called Rudhi. Rudhi Artha means that by convention. By convention you can say computer. But most of the words are Vyutpatti Artha. Vyutpatti Artha means that they're derived from some real meaningful. They're meaningful. Vyutpatti. So the word Aham. Why is Aham a meaningful word for I? So let's look at it. So now if you look at the alphabet in Sanskritam, so it is very interesting. I'm sure you have studied this, and if you haven't, you should really look into this. the makeup of the constituents of the face and the voice and so on, and its appropriate enunciation is all designed together at the same time by Ishvara. It's not as though the face came first and then you say, let's see what kind of sounds we can put this. No. The sounds and the whole apparatus for pronouncing it is all done together. So if you look at the alphabet, so you have consonants, you have vowels, you have semi-vowels, you have sibilants. All of this is there. You may have studied that. All have a meaning. For example, this is going to be a very big thing when we study the Upanishad. You cannot pronounce a syllable without a vowel. A vowel must have a consonant must have a vowel, otherwise it is not, there's no sound coming. You cannot say, you say, what did you say? No, I was saying ka without the a. It has to have a vowel. Ka, that has a vowel a. K, it has to have a vowel a. The vowel has to be there. And then there are different kinds of sounds. Ka, kha, ga, gha, nga. Different portions of here. Anyway, I'm going into more detail, but if you look at the entire alphabet starting with a, so this is the vowels. A, E, U, O. Then comes the consonants. Ka, kha, ga, ga, nga. Cha, cha, pa, pa, etc. Labials. All these sounds and so on. And then you have at the end ya, ra, la, va, semi-vowels. Then you have the sibilants. Sa, sha, ha is the last one. Ha, which is an aspirate. It's some air comes out, like you can say shanti. So if you do not have a aspirate at the end, hakara, then it comes out as shanti. But if you have a hakara, then it comes out as shanti, shanti, shant. That's how it's supposed to be. Shanti, shant. You should put your fingers in front of your mouth and the ha will say some air comes out. That is the very end. So the word aham means the entire possibility of all sounds. That is what my name is. Aham. Aham. And there are so many reasons for that, why that is. So, na hanyate, na hanti, na jahati. So it's interesting. You cannot kill the consciousness which is I. Na hanyate. Na jahati. Again the ha is there. You cannot give it up. You cannot say, I don't want to be myself. You cannot do it. You can say, I don't want to be like this. That you can. But the fact that you are is not in your hands. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. It is you. Na jahati. You can give up an arm if you want to, but not yourself. Na hanti na hanyate. Hanyamane sharire. Gita. So this is the aham. And finally, Swami Khandananda says that the subtlest of the Panchamahabhutas is Akasha. Atmanasta Akasha Sambhuta. So the first thing that occurs in the Srishti is the Akasha. The bija of Akasha is called Ham. So each one of the Panchamahabhutas has a bija. Bija means a seed word, seed letter, not word, but a letter. So each one of them has a separate yam, lam, ram, etc. Vam. And the one for Akasha, which is the subtlest of the objects, is called Ham. Aham means I am not even the space, which is indicative of the fact that I am not any of the rupas, because all the Pancha Mahabhutas have rupas. Aham means I am the very content of all rupas, as we will see in the explanation of the word Om. So anyway, that is the third word for you, which is called Aham. So with that, let me close the class today. And with the reminder that from now on, the Tuesday night class will also be based on Mandukya Karika. So I hope that you can, I'm going to continue, and it'll be easier for me to just take on the same topic, like some of the things that I didn't talk about today, about what Ishvara's arguments to the Jiva is in terms of why the Nama is better than Rupa. I can continue on that on Tuesday night, and I hope that you can attend. I know it's a lot. You don't have to, but if you can, it'd be good to continue with both classes. So with that, I will end today's class. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Good to see you all. That's wonderful. Thank you for attending. Jen, your question, if we do not attend Tuesday classes, will we need to review the video to stay on track for the Saturday? I would think so. Yes. I know that's a dilemma that I have. I know many of you may not be able to. I guess the only thing I can think of is that you can attend a couple of options. You can attend the alternate classes, missing one, and then maybe fill it up later, which is not ideal. The other one is to perhaps go through it more quickly. If you're not going to attend the Tuesday night class, then you can fast forward and get the sense of it to see what topics we are doing. And to a certain extent, I might think about summarizing the main concepts from the other class so that in case you're not able to attend all of them, at least you have some sense of continuity. So we'll have to see how that is. But I really think that it'll be difficult to complete this extensive course on once-a-week classes. So we almost have to do it in that sense. So yeah. If you have some other ideas, please let me know. But that's what we have to do. All right, if there's any other questions. I know, Shanti Kumar, it's at a later age, it becomes very difficult to learn new languages. I'm really amazed. I have a niece in India who knew 4 languages, I think by the time she was like 5 or 6, because her parents, her father, my brother-in-law, used to be in railways, and so they would be posted in different parts of the country where the languages will all be different, and their domestic help would have. So she knows 4 languages, and she knew it effortlessly by the time she was 5 or 6. I forget how old. But Shanti Kumar, my advice for you and for others who are learning Sanskrit is to do at least the following. I think that is a very good step. You should be comfortable in breaking sandhi. Practice it. Really go over the sandhi rules very well, and then put it into practice by reading and being able to parse the words separately, so separate them in your mind very quickly. If you did that, I think you will feel a lot better. Then you can do grammar rules slowly and so on. But the parsing of sandhi is the main thing that I think you should try to do. That would be my advice. Ronnie, yes, we are following the Gaudapada Karika for the text pretty much. Like, for example, now that you mentioned it, interesting, let me just tell you that. The explanation of aham, it's in the very beginning of the verse number 1 and 2, and also he takes it up again in more detail on the Agama Prakaranam, page 464, if you want to make a note of it. So there's a more explanation of that. Then the Akhyayika, the story about Ishvara and Jiva is given on page 620, again of the Agama Prakaranam. So I brought that up in the front. So I'm going to try to follow that as much as possible. But I will review Swami Dayanandaji's notes also. If there's something new that would come up, I would mention it. But the text that I'm going to follow is the Swami Akhandananda's. All right. Very good. Okay. Hopefully we'll see you next week or next Tuesday. We'll see. We'll try it for a few weeks. Let's see how that goes. If it creates a big problem, we may have to think about something else, but we'll do. Okay. Hari Om.